Hey guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna make a little update on the Phalaenopsis orchid species, particularly the summer blooming species. Not that I have a lot of species, to be honest with you, but here they are. They are finally in bloom, a little late this year, I have to say. If I remember correctly, last year they were in bloom or started to bloom somewhere in the summer, like they should. But in this climate, it appears that they adjusted in a different way. I also had a few issues with these guys in the sense that they were drying out a lot in the clay pots, and as soon as I moved them to plastic pots, they started to create beautiful foliage and everything started to go well. You might remember I talked about it. So today we're gonna take a look at them. Some of them have bloomed. They look really, really nice. They're finally starting to do okay, and as you can see, most of them are already transferred to semi-hydroponics, and this is because I already worked on them. I already knew the roots were not super attached to the ceramis, and I thought, hey, they like moisture, semi-hydroponics should be good for them. So there we go, that's why I moved them. And they look really, really well, but I think they just need a little bit more time to adjust and to just come into their own. So I suspect a better blooming will be next year. But anyway, let's just take them one by one because they're not super many. Let's start with, this is a hybrid. This is a Phalaenopsis and this is a cross between two species, and it's the Hieroglyphica crossed with Mariae. She acts exactly like a species. She's quite a big girl, as you can see, but the flower spikes are sequential blooming, meaning they will keep blooming for years and years from the top, or they will branch out, pretty much stay on the orchid for quite a lot of time. This is a new flower spike. She created this one this year, this summer, and now it's in bloom. So that's great, but the rest of the flower spikes were already here last year when I purchased it. And this year, unlike last year, it has more fragrance. It's not a fragrance that blows my mind because I have the bellina, I have the violacea, and another one which I will talk about, which smell beautiful. But this one has a sort of maybe fruity, mango-y type of fragrance. The best way I can describe it is as smelling green. But it's not perfumey or sweet in any way. It's nice, but I don't think it can fill up a room. Last year it didn't even have this. It had something, but it was much milder. So I guess things are improving with this orchid, and the flowers are just gorgeous. They have such a beautiful pattern. And as you can see, the multitude of flower spikes and flowers really put on a great show. The older this orchid gets, the better it will bloom, obviously. So you can see now why it's not a good idea to cut these flower spikes if the orchid is perfectly healthy and if the spikes are obviously green. This is an orchid that I purchased a few months ago. This is my very first violacea. I don't know what took me so long, but I finally purchased it. And this is the variety indigo blue crossed with red. It has absolutely amazing magenta flowers. I really like them. The color is really pigmented and very saturated, and the camera always has issues with these types of colors. But ever since I purchased it, she did not rebloom. She came with a flower that released one of the most gorgeous fragrances ever. Reminds me of the Cattleya Princess Jackie, if you know who she is. Beautiful fragrance, but ever since I purchased it, she did not create a new bud, but she is growing a new leaf, so that's good. But as you can see, she's focusing on growing vegetatively rather than blooming. That's okay, I'm totally fine with more leaves. But I have to say, I would love to see another flower this season from this orchid. We shall see. The flower spike is still green, looking okay, so no need to cut it or anything. But this is a new orchid, not much to say about it. Another orchid, well, this one is not that new, but I purchased it last year, is the Phalaenopsis speciosa. So this is the famous orchid which always blooms different. She can have white or red petals, and you can get all white or all red or combination. So it's always exciting when this orchid blooms. However, yet again, she produced one single flower. She has 3 flower spikes and sadly only 1 flower so far. So this orchid was not very keen on blooming for me this year. It's the first time that I see it in bloom. However, it produced this beautiful leaf during the summer. Ever since I purchased it last year, she produced this tiny leaf. I guess she was adapting to my environment. Now she's growing, and also I have a lot of roots growing. It's the orchid with the most roots, I think, growing actively at the moment. So I'm pretty happy with her evolution. It's just that I would have preferred more flowers. It's okay though. I think she is just currently focusing on vegetative growth and getting properly adjusted to my environment. So that's okay. I'm not very sad about it. And the flower spikes have a lot of branches. With a bit of luck, we're gonna have a lot of of flowers sometimes in the future. Okay, this is a Phalaenopsis that I received last year. Yet again, this is the Phalaenopsis fasciata, and she already bloomed last year. She has a flower spike. This year, on the other hand, she did not. And as you can see, she's not in tip-top condition. In the old clay pot, she absolutely suffered from dehydration. And for that reason, many of the roots have just shriveled. And I discovered it when I repotted. But new roots are growing at the moment, and as you can see, the following leaf looks a lot bigger than this one. So we're on the right track, but yet again, blooming was compromised for this year, and that's a shame because this orchid is really, really pretty. But I do see the roots finally. Oh, and I actually see a root right here. She's circling the pot. So that's good. But yet again, this year is pretty much compromised for the fasciata. And if you don't know these orchids, I have a few more, at least one more from that package. They spent 1 month on transport. So from the get-go, they weren't in the best condition. And I didn't necessarily do a great job with them from the point of view of hydration. And I'm sorry about that. Inevitably, there will be some random noises in my videos because, hey, who likes to be quiet, right? Alrighty, next up. Next one. This one, yet again, she suffered a lot. This is the Phalaenopsis sumatrana. I've never seen this one in bloom, but it was from the same shipment as the other one, so she suffered on transport. And this one, when I received it, first she created this leaf, which doesn't look all that great. And then I noticed the tip dying back as this one was forming, and hopefully you can see the shape here. I showed you this in a previous video, but now the leaf is completely mature. This is the moment where I repotted the orchid. So she was in the clay pot with the clay medium, she grew this leaf, and then this leaf was this big. Then I repotted it in the plastic pot, same medium, but plastic pot, and look what happened. Everything looks so gorgeous. And lately, this is the brand new leaf, looks gorgeous. She's really enjoying semi-hydro. I see the roots growing and everything is going fine, but yet again, no flowers this year. Hopefully next year. So the sumatrana, not much to say. I received it last year, but she is finally growing. Now this is one that I purchased very recently, a month and a half ago, but it just so happened that it arrived in super good condition. She has roots, they started to grow, she has nice foliage, she's a big girl. And this is the Phalaenopsis Tyn Shin fly eagle. If you don't remember the video that I made at the time, although it wasn't a spotlight, I need to make a spotlight. She is just like the tetraspis because she is a hybrid of the tetraspis, meaning she will always bloom differently. So let me get you a little zoomed in on the flowers to show you what I mean. I was telling you the petals and sepals of the tetraspis can be either red, either white. Well, the Tyn Shin can be either yellow, either red, but it's a totally different red. It's a brick brownish type of red, beautiful nonetheless. But looky here, this is what I mean. You can have all red flowers, all yellow flowers, or you can have flowers with just the tips yellow, or flowers with complete sepals or petals that are yellow. So it's a gorgeous orchid and it's very fragrant. I just had to take a sniff now. So when I purchased it, it didn't really have a fragrance because the flowers were from transport, they were fading kinda, so I didn't feel much of a fragrance, maybe a fruity fragrance, but now it is developed. These are two buds that developed in my care solely, and they develop properly and have a beautiful, hard to describe, fruity fragrance, but with a very powerful, very sweet underlayer. Maybe I can describe it as a little bit like propolis or a little bit like honey, but at the same time it is very fruity and kind of fresh. It's just that very heavy sweetness to them that makes it so yummy. I have to tell you guys, I have to smell it again, sorry. Oh my, it smells so good. If you see this one for sale, go for it. If it's at a decent price, I feel the flowers are even better than the tetraspis because they're bigger. The tetraspis is smaller than this. And as you can see, they're kind of different pretty much all the time. Maybe the contrast is a little bit better on the tetraspis because you have the very stark white and then the very bright red. But I find this beautiful as well, plus the fragrance. The tetraspis or speciosa does not have this fragrance. So if you're looking for something unique and with a beautiful fragrance, that's the one for you. Other than that, the orchid is doing fantastic. You can see the roots started to grow right there. She is pretty much adapting very well, and this flower spike, which is sadly the only one at the moment on the orchid, is just continuing to produce buds, and hopefully it will have more flowers in the season. Alrighty, next to it we have a pretty peculiar one, I have to say. This is the cornel cervi, variety Chatellate. You might have remembered we had a flower this year from this orchid and it was beautiful, but ever since then the flower spike didn't do anything much. And as you can see, the leaves are a little bit weird. So this orchid suffered a little bit from dehydration, but she has roots growing right now. Well, in the pot there aren't many roots. She really disliked the clay pots. It was one of the most affected orchids. I was hoping these leaves will look better, but apparently not. She needs more time. At some point I thought there's something seriously wrong with her, but I tend to believe no. The difference between the Phalaenopsis that you find in stores, the hybrids, and these ones is vigor. If you've ever heard of the hybrid vigor term, well, it refers to how fast an orchid bounces back, even how fast it grows, how hardy it is to harsh environments when something is lacking. Well, the Phalaenopsis that you find in stores have tremendous hybrid vigor. These babies, nothing. Pretty much zero, I have to say. Well, some of them. Some of them are okay, but I would not expect with a summer blooming species to have the same fast results as with a complex hybrid. I think this is really important to understand because if you have a bellina or a violacea and you're expecting it to grow 5 leaves in a year, or okay, 2 or 3, it might not happen. You might expect it to produce multiple flowers or get dehydrated and then just get over it and rehydrate really fast. It might just not happen with these guys. But that's okay, I think they are very worth it. And speaking about the bellina, she is in bloom, finally, because this is one of my absolute favorites. And do you notice something? I don't have that ugly pattern on the leaves. Well, I still do, but on the older leaves. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a sign of spider mites. I had terrible spider mite infestations and they can transmit the orchid flake virus. Phalaenopsis get this virus, some orchids don't, or they don't show it, they're not affected. Phalaenopsis are, and this was seriously attacked by spider mites, and the damage is irreversible. But the virus is not such a bad one in the sense that it can actually be eliminated by an orchid's immune system. The more stress-free you keep the orchid and the more you care for it, obviously, the faster it will recover. Absolutely, spider mites need to go away. So I did all of that for this orchid and I had to wait quite a lot. But finally, we have beautiful, clean leaves. This is a new leaf. It still is super shiny and super nice. The flower is wonderful. We have another bud under it. As you notice with these orchids, there aren't many flowers per inflorescence, let's call it like that. That's another difference these guys have in comparison to the hybrids, and you should not expect arching, cascading, full of flowers, flower spikes from these guys. They just don't work like that. But the bellina is one of those iconic species that I think everybody should have. It's not finicky. I don't consider these orchids finicky, just slow to react, slow to recover. And a bellina or even a violacea can teach you quite a lot about these species. They will not die on you if you mistreat them a little bit, but they are a little bit more sensitive. The reward, however, is a beautiful out-of-this-world flower with a beautiful out-of-this-world fragrance. Some of these Phalaenopsis have the best fragrances in my collection. The violacea, the bellina, and recently the Tyn Shin fly eagle are my most favorite fragrances in the Phalaenopsis world, and generally some of the favorites in the whole orchid collection that I have. And that's something because I have over 200 orchids at the moment. Alrighty, next to it we have an orchid that I mistreated a lot. I purchased it a long time ago, I think 4 years ago as a seedling. And of course I had to learn. She was kind of like my guinea pig. This is what I believe is a bellina red apple. It has identical flowers with the other bellina, but the coloring is slightly different. Fragrance-wise it's the same, although less powerful. Shape-wise it is the same. But it came with the idea of Phalaenopsis bellina, Malaysian hybrid, something of the sorts. So the proper name is still up in the air. This year she's doing better. I need to repot her. I didn't get to her just yet. She produced a larger leaf, which is good, but root-wise, we kind of need to work a little bit on it. I had this one in bloom a long time ago, but ever since then, yet again, mistreatment. But she is living proof that these orchids are not super finicky and will not die on you if you mistreat them. They will give you time to learn and understand them, but bouncing back, oh, that's a different story. You need to have patience with these guys. So let's take a look now at the last orchid. And this is yet again a weird one. I purchased this one from eBay at some point together with the tetraspis. The tetraspis died. This is the money black. So from the get-go you can see we have an issue with this leaf. but it has been corrected. When I repotted this orchid from the clay pot to the plastic pot, the leaf was formed up until here. And of course you can see it was dehydrated, and afterwards things started to correct themselves. I don't have a bloom just yet, but I have quite the massive root production. If you can see here, I need to repot this orchid. Now it's the time because she's actively growing. But yet again, she's slightly weird. She developed some sort of patterns right here. They really don't look like virus. I know they look scary, but they look more like a fungal thing to me, to be fully honest with you. You never know though, but viruses are not transmitted that easily, so I have no issue with this one staying here. I don't share water. I don't splash water around on everything, so pretty much viruses are very hard to transmit in my collection unless I have vectors such as aphids or something, which I don't. So no point in me freaking out about a little pigmentation here, even if it's a virus. But yeah, sadly, the money black refused to bloom, but she's growing an abundance of roots, so I guess that's good too. And that's about it on my Phalaenopsis species. I do have a sort of basic care type of video. You can find it down below if you want to learn more about these orchids. I think they're a great transition from the typical Phalaenopsis hybrids to, let's say, more of a collector's item, because these orchids are not available in stores or flower shops. You will never, probably at the moment, not find them there necessarily. You kind of need to go to nurseries or shops that you know bring a variety of species. Flower shops, at least here in Europe, will never carry these orchids, but they're not rare orchids, trust me. You just need to find a orchid nursery. You can visit it, you can order online. So alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I know some of you wanted to see the phals for quite a long time, and I hope this satisfied your appetite for phals. So you know the drill. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchids and plants videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! So we all know what happens when we keep our orchids next to the window. The flowers will face the window because that's where light comes from. But what if you have the source of light coming from above? Well, the flowers will just have to face the light source, and this is the case with my dendrobium here. I cannot say I'm a fan of it because obviously I cannot see the flowers. I would have much rather preferred them to face a direction, not upwards. But that's okay, now I know, and I will definitely move the location of this orchid just so the flowers don't grow directly into the light source. But you have to admit, it's still super pretty.